Welcome to the Rabbit Hole. This is episode 97. Hello, Carl. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Rafa. Good morning. Just for the listeners, viewers, I'm in England, and of course, you are in Romania.
Yes,
So,
still in the same place.
Yeah. So we used to be in the same place, but now we're not, and we decided to restart Rabbit Hole. Across a couple of time zones. So, what are we doing
Yes,
today?
come on. Well, we have actually a very interesting topic because I think everyone that has somehow get obsessed or not obsessed, maybe focused, I would say,
Yeah, let's
in,
flow.
yes, into either gaming or even watching, for example, a TV series. For example, these
Right.
marathons
Yeah.
of watching 6 seasons. For
Like
example, I don't
binge
know.
watching television.
Binge watching, yes, have suffered for this. And the topic of today is game transfer phenomenon.
Yeah. I must admit, I had not come across it until maybe last week. So I'm
Hmm.
obviously behind the curve here, although
Hmm.
um, I've, as we just mentioned, I've moved to my home country, and
Hmm.
previously I did have a game console, but that got lost in translation, shall we say? So
Lost
I'm
in
not doing
transition.
any. Yeah, I'm not doing any gaming at the moment. Although still doing the odd bit of binge watching television. So I was quite fascinated to
Hmm.
read about what game transfer phenomena is and what the manifestations of it are. And and I think, as I mentioned to you, Rafa, before we started recording,
Yeah.
I do have I do have a personal experience of what I think is game transfer phenomena. It actually happened to me many years ago and has never
Yeah.
happened since. But
But I think we should start first by telling people what
yeah,
does it mean?
yeah, sure.
Because basically what it means, game transfer phenomenon, is that this is a condition in which basically the physical world starts to bleeding and blending with the video games
Or the TV
or the
series or
TV
whatever.
series or things that are uh, getting your mind
Yeah,
constantly involved in. You
yeah,
start to have reactions. You start to have images and fixed images sometimes, and cannot make your mind really
yeah,
make a separation between okay, I was dreaming or this is for real
yeah.
or things like this.
Or this this researcher at Bergen University,
Yes,
which you will enlighten us by pronouncing her name for us.
Angelica Ortiz de Gortari.
There you go.
There you go.
That
Yes.
lady, she has made it her thing to, amongst other things, presumably, to research GTP. And one of the things that she said that I found quite interesting was that the phenomena is in some ways related to that other thing that I think we've talked about quite a long time ago now, this earworm thing,
Oh yes.
where you get a tune in your head and you
Yeah.
just don't seem to be able to get it out.
Yeah.
And
You
it
just
just,
keep repeating the song. Oh, that song is
yeah,
catchy and got in my head, and
yeah,
I
it just
cannot
keeps,
forget it. And yeah,
exactly. And she suggests that there is some link between earworm phenomenon and this, in that it's obviously somehow triggering some processes in the brain that
hmm,
we don't fully understand, but we certainly didn't evolve to deal with.
at least yet.
Yeah, it's early days yet,
It's
right?
early days, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
But
By the time we've got very large heads and shriveled legs,
hmm,
maybe we'll have evolved some coping strategy in our brains.
hmm,
I don't know. But
well,
yeah,
yeah,
what I thought was quite interesting was where she talks about what people feel when
hmm,
they're experiencing an episode of GPT. Um, I mean, you've said you've experienced it. She talks about feelings of distress and dysfunction. I just thought that was
Anxiety.
everyday life,
Yeah.
but you've experienced it. I think not
Yes, obviously
in
it's
that
not
way, but
an extreme,
yeah,
but it has happened, and I think a lot of people have been into this happening. Like you are playing a lot of a certain video game, for example, and you start to really get that anxiety and start to have even sometimes twitches or reactions of in the game, and get it into that, or you finish playing and then you go, for example, to sleep, and you just cannot get outside of that loop of the game and the images and
yeah,
your reactions, or how are you gonna deal with things.
mm.
uh, you even start to blend what will be your dreams with these, because of course you are getting the influence, right? If you are doing this before going to bed,
You're kind of being stimulated, I suppose. Aren't you?
stimulated like big time, and
Yeah,
sometimes you just cannot sleep, you just are obsessed or keep
yeah.
seeing things.
She's
I don't know, you will get obsessed with Minecraft and you just see blocks all the time, like
so
stuff like that.
apparently not sleeping properly is generally regarded as not a good thing, right?
For sure, yeah.
But I suppose when you're a teenager or whatever, what I find fascinating with teenagers and young people is that they seem to obviously not worry about not getting enough sleep when apparently, according to science, they need more sleep than anybody.
Exactly. Exactly what you would think before, like a teenager would need less actually because they're young. Like, come on, they can take it.
Yeah,
They actually need more time.
no. Well, I suppose it's because the brain is still developing up to 21, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, it all takes energy and blah, blah, blah. So,
Yes.
I, th-
And you know what's also interesting? That
yeah,
sometimes this kind of course, in a small degree, not to the degree to get really confusing reality with a game, which is the less of the cases, but it has happened. But watching, for example, or binge watching a TV series gets you in a similar state, like in a video game, in which you cannot sleep, or you are starting constantly just getting into the cycle of the narrative of the TV series of,
yeah,
you know, all the episodes. And then you just cannot get out of that loop somehow.
yeah. I wonder, I don't know. I'm assuming that it's not done deliberately. In that, if you think about
No.
social media and how the
Hmm.
algorithms work, obviously they're crafted to drive engagement, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I've never read of um, TV producers or series producers engaging uh, rooms full of psychologists to advise them on how to keep people hooked. Maybe they
Hmm.
do. Maybe it's
I,
a hidden
I
thing.
actually think they do.
You think they do? Yeah, but you never
I
read
think
about
so.
it.
That's
And
another
then
topic probably for discussion, but
maybe,
I mean, it is known that they, most of the, I mean, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure nowadays, but these pre-screenings, grabbing, just a pool from the population and present a TV show before their launch to
yeah,
register reactions, to
like
register,
what do they
yes,
call them?
and
Test
usually they are
audiences.
checking face reaction, body reactions while watching those episodes before they release, and this is
Yeah,
part of their study before launching something or not, for
yeah,
example, on
that's
TV.
true. I always thought I agree with you. I mean, particularly with like comedy
Hmm.
series, particularly in the US, I
Yeah.
think they test the scripts almost real time, and if they don't get a laugh, they rewrite the script. Right?
Yeah.
Um, I'm not entirely sure how common that is because that sounds really expensive. Right?
For sure. Nowadays, for sure.
Nowadays, for sure. Maybe you just read the script to an AI now, and it laughs like a robot, something. I don't know, but
Yes. But
yeah,
coming
I've
back to that,
never.
can you tell us your experience?
Oh, you.
I'm curious now. What was that experience that you're saying that?
Well, it's a bit. I don't know. What you probably think is. I'm going to watch your face very carefully
Okay,
as I tell you, and if I
like a
if I
TV
see
show ready to be launched.
if I see any hint of oh my god,
Of laughing. Okay.
yeah, no, no, that's fine. It's fine. No, it is. Yeah, give us your best poker face. Here
Okay.
we go. Right. So about I don't know. It must be 25 years ago now. So yeah, literally in the previous century.
Yeah.
So um, I was watching on television um, a sports series which is called Six Nations, which is a rugby
Hmm.
competition that's
Yeah.
still going, right? I'm sure you've heard of it. And basically, obviously, my country, England, has a team in this. Not obviously, but it's one of the Six Nations that is in the competition. So it was a period when I was very keen on watching. So I watched like literally every match with all the countries. And
Okay.
then, as the kind of cherry on the cake, um, my brother and I decided we would buy tickets, which is the first time we've ever done anything like that. We bought tickets to see England play some country that I can't remember at Wembley Stadium, which is one of the big um, rugby slash football sport stadiums in London, right?
Hmm.
So it was all very exciting. So off we go. We go to the stadium, and there's like 70,000 people. And we are in the stands, in the, because in most sports arenas in the UK are standing
Hmm.
mostly with some seating, but mostly standing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we are on the England end of the pitch, right? This is
Hmm.
rugby and huge atmosphere, obviously. And I've never really experienced that before, to be honest, because I'm not really a
Uh-huh.
that kind of sports person. I don't take a lot of notice of sports
Hmm.
generally. Anyway, so we're watching the game, right? And I'm very focused on the action, and we're quite high up in the the stands. So I can see obviously all the action, but they're not the best seats, so it's quite a way away.
Okay.
And then this is where the weird thing happened, right? So I'm watching the game,
Okay.
and there was a play that was like contentious on the pitch, right?
Hmm.
So there was this play on the pitch that was contentious, and I was stood there in the stands, and I honestly was stood there, almost like stock still, because I was waiting for the action replay,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
picture in picture type thing, right?
Hmm.
So, and I was, and it actually took me several seconds to actually kind of come to my senses and go,
Hmm.
what the hell am I doing waiting for the picture in picture? I'm not at home sat watching on the TV. And
Hmm.
by the way, I since then I've become convinced that the best way to watch those kinds of sporting events is on television, because you literally cannot get the angles, the whatevers
Hmm.
that you get watching on television. So obviously I must have watched 25 games prior to that match on television, with obviously the commentary and the
Hmm.
action playback when there's some thing going on that people didn't like or
Yeah.
whatever. And there I was in the stadium, actually seriously stood there expecting a picture to appear in my vision with
Yeah.
the playback, right?
Well, I think it's easily to understand in this case because you were not used to be there in real life, just watching on TV.
Yeah,
So your brain was already prepared to this kind of incident. Like, I get the replay,
yeah,
I see, continue watching,
yeah,
and for you being there in the stadium, basically, it's a new experience.
Yeah,
that at some point being so focused is like going back to be watching the TV only.
yeah,
And that, I guess that's why you start to get that thing of, okay,
yeah.
where's the
Right.
replay now?
I mean, it was literally like I really was focused on the play, and it was like, yeah, I was just in a little world of my own making. You know what I mean? And of course, my experience was that there would be an action replay. So,
Yeah,
do you think that is this? Do you think it's an aspect of that?
yeah. I think it's important to notice uh, these kind of things that I think our brain starts to get wired in a certain situation and focused.
Yeah,
That when some similar focus happens, probably you go back to it. Just like
yeah.
sometimes you go back to that song that you cannot take away.
Well, maybe you have like an expectation of a certain set
Yeah.
of you know things happening. The
Mm-hmm.
like anything, we become used to something, and we obviously, unless we see a change continuing, we don't change. We get stuck. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But
I yeah.
go on.
No, I was just going to say that I think the real big problem starts when you start to, like, in this image that we're having now on screen,
Yeah,
when you basically put yourself in real world, but still, let's say, in character.
yeah.
I think that's when probably it becomes really a problem, actually, on
Well,
in
I
reality.
I read again in the research that some of the things that people experienced was that they were somehow, say they were outside somewhere, and somehow people might see a certain scenario in the real world that in their mind maps closely enough to something in a game, and they
Hmm.
then almost like misidentify that scene in reality with the content in the game. So it might be a combination of colors of something, or it might be the actual, the setup, the
Yeah,
scenario, almost like I suppose, like a technological deja vu or something, right?
yeah,
Where you feel as if you've seen it before or something.
yeah. Or somebody would say messing with the. Um,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
uh, I
yeah.
got a blackout now. With the Matrix,
Yeah, I suppose.
right?
Yeah. Well, the other interesting thing, that couple of interesting things I read from the research was um, that it's thought that between 82 and 96% of serious game players have this experience at some
Yeah,
point. That playing time appears to be a factor, especially if you go above 4 hours in one
yeah.
session.
I agree. Hmm.
And I think I have done that in the past. And you do get wired, I think, is the
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
what I would call it anyway. Um, the other interesting thing is that there was another organization, or an organization, GAA, Gaming Addicts Anonymous,
Uh huh.
and that's a US based thing. I don't think we need to explain what that's for. Um, and a spokesman for them, a guy called Scott Jennings, he he proposes that, or his observation is that because we didn't evolve to, kind of expect
Hmm.
gameplay, shall we say, in the immersive way that it is now,
Yeah.
that actually we're simply not evolved to easily differentiate
Hmm.
between reality and virtual worlds, and that the virtual worlds are getting so realistic that there's actually evidence that our brains are actually forming memories, but the memories are actually from the gameplay, not real life, and that later, we actually have difficulty determining whether the memory was real or from a game, and
Yeah.
I can imagine that could be really concerning actually if it became.
Hmm.
Imagine 20 years time when we're all playing 3D high resolution, you know, AI driven games where it literally is an alternate reality.
Yeah.
Maybe what we're seeing right now is the beginnings of a bigger, deeper problem that we're probably going to see emerging in the future. Anyway,
Yeah. Well, it's true. And actually, nowadays, games are basically designed to create experiences.
yeah,
Like some time
memorable
ago,
experiences, right?
and maybe if somebody in our audience have played this one, there's a game called Hellblade.
Right.
And that game is designed for you to play it wearing headphones because the main character has schizophrenia basically and all kind of things, and there's no hell bars, there's nothing there, so you just need to listen to the voices in your head to be able to
I'm
understand
doing
what the
that
heck is going
already.
on. So basically it's like you have to get paranoid here and schizophrenic like her to
Yeah.
actually be able to understand when have low health and you hear the voices, oh my god, one more hit and you're dead.
Oh,
So if you don't have that,
right.
it's very hard to understand and enjoy basically the game because it's made for that. To all those creepy sounds, all those voices in your head constantly talking to you with all kind of situations. It,
I
it
don't.
can be
I don't need a
daunting.
game for that.
That's the normal condition.
You just described my life.
that's that's interesting. What
Yeah.
is the voice telling you now?
But, I can't repeat it.
Well, I guess it's saying that it's time to say bye now.
Yeah, I suppose. But I
Yeah.
think anyway, a very interesting, a new
Yeah.
thing for me. But obviously, you've come across it before. Um, the latest research is very interesting,
Hmm.
and I'm sure it will evolve as the gaming environment or generally media becomes more immersive in the future.
Immersive. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So it will be interesting to see if any of our viewers can have or listeners has any experience
Yeah,
to share it with us there in the comments. It would be
yeah,
interesting to read what kind of experiences they had if they had anything
yeah.
uh,
Be interesting.
related to GTP.
Yeah, cool.
So thank you, Carl,
Thank you, Rafa.
and see you next time.